The merchant vessel Gentle Drift floated through the darkness of space like a silver leaf on a black river. It was a small ship, built for carrying cargo between peaceful worlds. The crew was made of 12, a species that looked like tall, thin figures made of pale blue glass. Their skin glowed softly in the dark, and their large eyes could see colors that humans could never imagine. They were gentle creatures. They had never known war. They had never needed to fight. Captain stood on the bridge, watching the stars pass by on the main screen. She was older than most of her crew, with a calm voice and steady hands. She had been flying cargo ships for 30 years, and she had never seen real danger. The universe, she believed, was mostly empty and mostly safe. That belief was about to change. The alarm came without warning, a soft beeping sound that made Navigator look up from his console with confusion on his face. "Captain," he said, "there is something ahead, a small object. It is sending a distress signal." Moved closer to look at the screen. The object was tiny, barely visible against the endless black. "What is it?" "An escape pod, very old design, not from any species I know." Touched his controls and more information appeared. "There is one life form inside, alive, but the readings are strange." First officer stepped forward. She was younger than the captain, with sharp eyes and a nervous way of moving her hands. "We should leave it alone. We do not know what is inside. It could be dangerous." "It is a distress signal," said simply. "We cannot ignore someone who needs help." "But Captain, bring it in." The crew worked quickly. The escape pod was pulled into the cargo bay with gentle care. It was a rough, ugly thing, built from heavy metal and covered in burn marks. It looked like it had been through a war. When they opened it, they found her. She was lying on her back, eyes closed, breathing slowly. She looked almost like a but wrong in every way. Her skin was not blue but a warm brown color. Her body was thick with muscles. Her hands were large and heavy, with short fingers that looked strong enough to crush stone. Medical officer approached carefully, holding her scanner. The device made a worried sound. "Her body temperature is very high," said, her voice shaking. "If it was this hot, they would be dead, and her heart. It beats so hard, like a drum, and her bones, they are so dense, so heavy." "What is she?" asked. He was the security officer, though he had never needed to secure anything in his life. Looked at her scanner again. "According to the database, she is human, from a planet called Earth." The word spread through the crew like cold water. Human. They had all heard stories about humans. Earth was classified as a death world, a planet so dangerous that most species could not survive there for even one day. The gravity was crushing. The temperature changed wildly. The water fell from the sky. Radiation poured from the sun. And somehow humans lived there. Somehow they thrived. The humans' eyes opened. They were brown like dark wood, and they pointed forward like the eyes of a hunter. When she moved, her arm hit the wall of the medical bay. The metal dented under her touch. The crew jumped back in fear, raised his hands as if to protect himself, though he had no weapon. The human sat up slowly. She looked around with confusion on her face. Her voice was rough and deep when she spoke. "Where am I? What happened?" Her words were in Galactic common, but her accent was strange and hard to understand. Forced herself to step forward. "You are on the merchant vessel Gentle Drift. We found your escape pod. Do you remember how you got there?" The human touched her head with one heavy hand. "No, I remember. My ship, the Hope. We were carrying supplies to a colony. Then, nothing, just darkness." "What is your name?" "Park, I was an engineer." Whispered to the captain, "We should put her back in the pod, send her away. She is too dangerous." Heard her? The human's ears were sharp too, it seemed. "I am not dangerous. I am just confused, please. I do not know what happened to my ship. I do not know if my friends are alive." There was something in her voice that made pause. It was fear. Real fear. This creature from a death world, this being who could dent metal with a casual touch, was afraid. We will give you a place to stay, decided. A cargo hold. It is small, but it is private. We will help you contact your people. Captain protested. She is a guest. We will treat her as one. Was taken to a small cargo hold at the back of the ship. She walked behind, who kept looking over his shoulder at her with wide, frightened eyes. Every step she took made the floor shake slightly. Every breath she took was loud in the quiet corridors. When she was alone in the cargo hold, sat on the cold floor and put her face in her hands. She did not understand why everyone was so afraid of her. She was just an engineer. She fixed broken machines. She was nobody special. Outside, the crew gathered on the bridge. They spoke in low voices, as if afraid might hear them from the other side of the ship. She could kill us all without trying, said. She dented the wall by accident, added. What happens if she gets angry? She will not get angry if we treat her well, said firmly. She is lost and scared. We will help her. That is what good people do. Shook her head but said nothing more. That night the ship's life support system made a strange sound. Then it made no sound at all. The warm air that kept the alive began to grow cold. In her cargo hold, noticed the temperature drop. She pulled her thin jumpsuit around her shoulders. Getting a bit chilly, she muttered to herself. She did not know that this cold would be deadly. She did not know that the nightmare was just beginning. The cold came slowly at first, like a thief in the night. It crept through the corridors of the gentle drift, stealing warmth from every room. They felt it in their bones before they saw it on their instruments. Engineer was the first to notice. He was checking the power systems when his thin fingers began to shake. He looked at the temperature display and his glowing skin went pale. The heating system is failing, he said into his communicator. Temperature has dropped 10 degrees. It is still falling. On the bridge, Captain felt the cold touch her face. To a human, it would have felt like a cool autumn morning. To her, it felt like death approaching. How long until we freeze? She asked. Checked her medical data. At this rate, we have maybe 6 hours. After that, our bodies will start to shut down. Our blood will become too thick to move. Our organs will stop working. The crew moved quickly. They gathered in the warmest part of the ship, a small room near the engine where some heat still remained. They huddled together like frightened animals, their glowing skin growing dim as their bodies tried to save energy. And his fellow engineer went to fix the heating system. They worked as fast as their cold fingers would allow, but the system was badly damaged. A pipe had cracked. Coolant was leaking into places it should not be. The repair would take hours they did not have. Communications officer tried to send a distress signal, but her hands were shaking too badly to work the controls. The cold was making her thoughts slow and foggy. I cannot focus, she whispered. Everything is so cold. Felt the cold too, but differently. In her cargo hold, she had wrapped herself in some old blankets she found in a corner. Her breath made small clouds in the air. Her fingers were uncomfortable, but she could still move them easily. She decided to find out what was happening. When she opened the door of her cargo hold, a wave of even colder air hit her face. She frowned and walked toward the front of the ship. The corridors were dark. The lights had been dimmed to save power. Her footsteps echoed loudly in the silence. She found the crew in the warm room. They were pressed together in a tight group, their blue skin looking gray and dull. Some of them were not moving. What is happening? Asked. Looked up at her with hatred in his large eyes. You did this. You broke our heating system. I did nothing. I was sleeping. Lies, you want to kill us. Moved to block her path. His whole body was shaking, partly from cold and partly from fear. Stay back, stay away from us. Felt a flash of anger, but she pushed it down. These people were dying. They were scared. She had to help them, not fight them. I am an engineer, she said calmly. Let me look at your heating system. Maybe I can fix it. We do not need your help, spat. Yes, Captain said weakly, we do. The captain's voice was soft and tired. She was sitting against the wall, her arms wrapped around herself. Her glow had almost disappeared completely. Let her help, continued. We have no other choice. Wanted to argue, but he could not find the strength. He pointed toward a small door at the end of the corridor. The maintenance shaft is there. The damage is deep inside the system. We cannot reach it. Too cold, too small. Nodded and walked to the door. She opened it and looked inside. A narrow tunnel stretched into darkness. Cold air poured out like water from a broken dam. She could see ice forming on the walls. Without hesitation, she climbed inside. The shaft was tight around her shoulders. She had to crawl on her stomach, pulling herself forward with her hands. The metal was so cold it burned her skin. Frost covered everything. Her breath froze in the air before her face. For this place would be a grave, for it was just very uncomfortable. She crawled for what felt like forever. Her fingers grew numb. Her nose ran, but she kept moving, following the pipes until she found the damage. A thermal regulator had cracked. Some kind of impact had broken it, maybe a small piece of space debris hitting the ship. Coolant was spraying everywhere, and the heating system could not work without it. Did not have the right parts to fix it, but she was an engineer. Engineers found solutions. She pulled some wires from a nearby panel. She took a piece of metal from the wall. She used her own belt to hold things in place. It was ugly work, rough and improvised, but it would hold. For 6 hours she worked in that frozen tunnel. Her body burned energy to keep itself warm. Her muscles ached. Her mind grew tired, but she did not stop. She could not stop. People were dying out there. Finally, she connected the last wire. The system hummed. Warm air began to flow. Crawled back through the tunnel. When she emerged, she could barely stand. Her fingers were white with frostbite. Her lips were blue, but she was alive. She stumbled back to the warm room. The crew looked up at her with wide eyes. Warm air was pouring from the vents above them. The lights were growing brighter. But not everyone was moving. Lay still on the floor, his skin completely dark. Was beside him, her eyes open but seeing nothing. Was curled in a corner, her body cold and stiff. 3 dead, 3 people who would never wake up. Checked their bodies with shaking hands. They are gone. The cold took them. Fell to her knees. She had tried so hard. She had worked for 6 hours in freezing darkness, and still 3 people were dead. I am sorry, she whispered. I am so sorry. The surviving crew looked at her. They saw a creature who had survived conditions that killed their friends. They saw a being who walked through deadly cold like it was nothing. They saw a monster. But some of them also saw something else. They saw tears freezing on her frostbitten cheeks. They saw grief in her hunter's eyes. Leaned close to, she is not even trying to kill us, she whispered, and we are dying anyway. What happens when she actually gets angry? Had no answer. He just stared at the human kneeling on the floor, crying for people she barely knew, and felt a fear deeper than anything he had ever known. 2 days passed after the cold killed 3 of the crew. The gentle drift continued its journey through space, but everything had changed. The ship felt empty now. The corridors that once echoed with soft voices were quiet and heavy with grief. The 9 surviving crew members did not know what to do with. She had saved them. That was true, but she had also survived something that killed their friends like it was nothing. How could they trust someone like that? How could they not fear her? Captain tried to keep things normal. She assigned duties. She checked systems. She made sure everyone ate their meals, but even she could not hide the tension that filled every room when walked in. Tried to help. She really did. She woke up early and repaired damaged equipment. She organized cargo that had fallen during the cold. She cleaned parts of the ship that the crew was too weak to reach. She wanted them to see that she was not a threat. She wanted them to see that she was just a person, lost and scared and trying to do the right thing. but everything she did made things worse. When she lifted a heavy container that would take 3 to move, they stared at her with fear. When she ate her food, they watched her tear into it with her flat teeth, her jaw crushing everything like a machine. When she walked down a corridor, they pressed themselves against the walls to let her pass. The worst was her eyes. Had eyes on the sides of their heads like many prey animals. They could see in almost every direction at once, but its eyes pointed forward like a hunter tracking its food. When she looked at someone, both eyes focused on them at the same time. It was the gaze of a predator choosing its next meal. Did not know this. To her, she was just looking at people. She did not understand why they flinched every time she made eye contact. One evening, she was walking to the cargo bay when she turned a corner and found cargo handler standing in the narrow corridor. There was no room to pass without getting close. "Oh, sorry," said with a small smile. "I did not see you there." She stepped forward to move past. Screamed. The sound was high and terrible, full of pure animal terror. Fell against the wall, her thin arms raised to protect her face. Her whole body shook. Her glow flickered like a dying candle. Stepped back quickly, her hands raised. "I am not hurting you. I am just walking. I am not going to hurt you." But could not hear her. All she could see was a predator coming toward her in a small space. All she could feel was ancient fear, programmed into her blood by millions of years of evolution. Her ancestors had been hunted by creatures that looked like. That memory lived in her body, even if her mind knew better. Came running at the sound of the scream. She found curled on the floor, crying and shaking, and standing 3 meters away with horror on her face. "What did you do?" demanded. "Nothing, I did nothing. I just walked toward her." Helped to her feet and led her away. She did not look back she did not need to. Her message was clear: stay away from us. Went back to her cargo hold and sat in the darkness for a long time. She thought about her ship, the Hope. She thought about her friends there, other humans who never flinched when she looked at them. She wondered if they were still alive. She wondered if she would ever see them again. That night while she slept, someone came into her room. Moved silently across the floor. In his hand, he held an injector filled with a powerful sedative. It was meant for large animals, strong enough to put a creature 10 times his size into a deep sleep. Strong enough, he hoped, to stop a human heart. He stood over a sleeping form. His hands were shaking. He had never hurt anyone in his life, but he was security officer. It was his job to protect the crew, and was a threat even if she did not mean to be. He pressed the injector against her neck and pushed the button. The sedative entered her blood, stepped back and waited for her to stop breathing. Instead, made a small sound and rolled over. Her eyes opened slowly. She looked at standing there, holding the empty injector, and she understood immediately what he had tried to do. Expected her to attack. He expected rage, violence, death. He was ready to die. Sat up and rubbed her neck. "That stuff really burns," she said. Her voice was not angry, it was just tired. "What was in that? My head feels strange." You should be dead," whispered. "Why, what did you give me?" "Enough sedative to kill a beast, 10 times your weight." Blinked. "Oh, that explains the headache." She looked at. He was trembling so badly he could barely stand. His fear was so strong she could almost smell it. "I am not going to hurt you," said slowly. "I know you are scared. Honestly, I am scared too. I do not know where my ship is. I do not know if my crew is alive. I am stuck here with people who look at me like I am a monster." His legs gave out. He fell to his knees on the cold floor. "On my world," he said, his voice breaking, "there were creatures like you, long ago. They hunted my people, they ate us. We almost went extinct. The fear of them is in our blood, we cannot control it." "I understand," said, and she did. She could not forgive him for trying to kill her, but she understood. "I am not one of those creatures. I do not hunt. I do not eat people. I am just an engineer who fixes machines. but I know you cannot just stop being afraid. Fear does not work that way." She reached out and put her heavy hand on his thin shoulder. He flinched but did not pull away. "I will stay in this room as much as I can," she promised. "I will try not to scare anyone, but please do not try to kill me again. I do not want to become the monster you think I am." Nodded weakly. Tears were running down his glowing face. Neither of them knew that in the darkness of space, something was coming toward them, something that would make their small fears seem like nothing at all. The ship's long-range sensors detected it first, a vessel approaching fast, broadcasting no identification codes. On the bridge, Captain saw the shape appear on her screen, and her blood turned to ice. Pirates! The pirate ship came out of the darkness like a shark smelling blood. It was 3 times the size of the gentle drift, covered in weapons and armor plates taken from other ships it had destroyed. Its name was the Bone Collector, and it belonged to a species known throughout the galaxy for one thing: cruelty. They were tall and gray, with 4 arms and faces that looked like they were made of stone. They did not take prisoners. They took parts. They sold skin for its glow. They sold eyes for their ability to see colors. They sold bones for their lightness. A single body could make a rich for a year. Captain had heard stories about what happened to ships that met the. She had never believed she would become one of those stories. "They are hailing us," said. His voice was flat with despair. "Ignore it. Full speed to the nearest station." "Captain, they are faster than us. They will catch us in minutes." Closed her large eyes. She thought about her crew, the 9 people still alive who trusted her to keep them safe. She thought about what they would do to them. "Then we surrender," she said quietly. "Maybe they will be quick." Captain stepped forward. "We cannot just give up. We have no weapons, we have no fighters, we have no way to stop them." His voice broke. "I am sorry, I do not know what else to do." The Bone Collector caught up to them within minutes. Metal claws extended from its hull and grabbed onto the gentle drift like a predator grabbing prey. The whole ship shook as the pirates locked on. The crew gathered in the main corridor, waiting for death. They held each other's thin hands. They whispered goodbye to loved ones who would never hear them, was crying quietly, was praying to old gods she barely remembered. Came out of her cargo hold. She walked down the corridor toward the group, her heavy footsteps making the floor shake. Everyone turned to look at her with wide, frightened eyes. "What are you doing?" asked. "The pirates, how many are coming aboard?" Checked his handheld scanner. 8. 8 are cutting through the airlock right now. Nodded slowly. Her face had changed. The confusion and sadness were gone. Something else was there now, something hard and cold. "All of you need to go into that room," she said, pointing at a storage closet nearby. "Lock the door. Do not open it until I knock 3 times." "What are you going to do?" asked. "What I have to do." "You cannot fight," Ada said. "They are trained killers, they have weapons. You are just one person." Looked at him, and for the first time saw something in her eyes that made them understand why their ancestors had feared creatures like her. It was not anger. It was not hatred. It was something older and colder. It was the look of a predator about to hunt. "Get in the room," said again. "Now." They obeyed. They did not know why, but they obeyed. Something in her voice left no room for argument. The storage closet door closed and locked. Through the thin walls, the crew could hear what happened next. They heard the airlock break open with a terrible crash. They heard heavy footsteps and rough voices speaking in the language. They heard the pirates spreading through the ship, looking for prey. Then they heard something else. A scream, not a scream, but a scream, deep and rough and full of surprise. Then another scream, and another. Then sounds that were worse than screams. Wet sounds, breaking sounds, the sound of a body hitting a wall hard enough to dent metal. Found a security panel in the closet. His shaking fingers activated the cameras throughout the ship. The crew gathered around the small screen and watched. What they saw would stay with them for the rest of their lives. Moved through the corridors like nothing they had ever seen. She was not fast by human standards. She was tired, hungry, still weak from frostbite. But to the she was a nightmare made real. The first pirate never saw her coming. She came from behind and grabbed his head with both hands. One quick twist, and he fell to the floor and did not move again. She took his weapon, a curved blade meant for cutting through flesh. She did not know how to use it properly. She did not need to. The second pirate came around a corner and found her waiting. He swung his own blade at her. She stepped inside his reach, too close for his weapon to work, and drove the stolen blade into his chest. The third and fourth came together. They were larger than her, stronger than her, trained for combat. They had killed hundreds of people between them. It did not matter. Fought like an animal, like a force of nature. She took hits that would have killed and kept fighting. She bled and kept fighting. She broke bones and kept fighting. When the third pirate fell, the fourth tried to run. She caught him in 3 steps and brought him down from behind. The remaining 4 came together, forming a group. They had heard the screams of their friends. They knew something was wrong. They moved carefully through the ship, weapons ready, watching every shadow. Did not give them the chance to use their training. She dropped from above, from a maintenance shaft they had not thought to check. She landed on one pirate and killed him before she hit the ground. The other 3 scattered in panic. She hunted them one by one through the corridors of the ship, one in the engine room, one in the cargo bay. The last one almost made it back to the airlock before she caught him. Then it was over. Stood in the middle of the main corridor, breathing hard. Blood covered her clothes, her hands, her face. None of it was hers. Around her, 8 lay dead. 8 trained killers who had murdered hundreds of innocent people. 8 monsters who had come to harvest her friends for parts. She walked to the storage closet door. She knocked 3 times. The door opened slowly. The crew looked out at her with expressions she could not read. Horror, fear, something that might have been awe. "It is safe now," said. Her voice was rough and tired. Saw the bodies and vomited on the floor. Started crying again, but this time it was from relief. Stared at with her mouth open, unable to find words. Captain stepped forward. She looked at the blood, at the bodies, at the human who had done all this. "Thank you," she said simply. Swayed on her feet. The energy that had carried her through the fight was fading fast. "I was a repair technician," she mumbled. "I fixed engines. I was not even trained for combat." The crew understood what she was saying. If this was what an untrained human could do, what could a human soldier do? What could a human army do? Moved forward to help sit down. She began treating the small wounds on the human's hands and arms, cuts she had barely noticed during the fight. Looked at the security footage again. She watched kill 8 armed pirates in less than 10 minutes. She watched a creature who had spent the last 3 days apologizing for being scary become something terrifying beyond imagination. "The mothership," said suddenly. "The pirate mothership is still out there." Everyone looked at the screen. The bone collector hung in space outside, waiting. It had sent 8 warriors to take a small cargo ship, 8 warriors who were now dead. And inside that mothership, over 100 more were preparing for their second attack. The bone collector hung in space like a hungry beast waiting to strike again. Inside its metal belly, over 100, warriors prepared their weapons and armor. Their first boarding party had stopped responding. 8 of their best fighters had gone silent. The captain of the pirate ship was not worried. He was angry. On the gentle drift, the surviving crew watched the mothership on their screens. They knew what was coming. 100 warriors, 100 killers. Even with all her impossible strength, could not fight that many. The ship's engines were damaged from when the pirates had grabbed them. They could not run. The communication systems were weak, too weak to call for help that would never arrive in time anyway. Captain sat in her chair on the bridge, her thin body heavy with despair. "This is the end," she said quietly. "I am sorry, everyone, I failed you." No one argued with her. What could they say? The math was simple. 1 human against 100 pirates. Even a could not change those numbers. Sat in the corner of the bridge, her wounds wrapped in white bandages that were already turning red. She was so tired. Her body had nothing left to give. But her mind was still working, still thinking, still looking for a way out. "Your communication system," she said suddenly. "Can it reach the pirate ship?" Looked at her with confusion. "Yes, we can talk to them, but what good will that do? They do not want to negotiate, they want us dead." "Let me try something," stood up slowly, holding the wall for support. "Open a channel to them, broadcast on their frequency." "This is foolish," said. "They will just laugh at us." "Maybe, but we have nothing else to lose." Nodded at, the navigator's thin fingers moved across his controls. "Channel open," he said. Took a deep breath. She thought about her home, about Earth, about the billions of humans living on that death world. She thought about what her species had done throughout history when someone hurt them. She thought about the wars, the revenge, the long memory of human anger. Then she spoke. "This is Park of Earth. I killed your boarding party, all 8 of them, alone." Her voice was rough and tired, but it carried across space to every speaker on the bone collector. She knew they were listening. She knew they were angry. "I am injured. I am tired. I am one person on a small ship full of peaceful traders. You could send your 100 warriors and probably kill me, probably, but I promise you this." She paused and let the silence stretch. "I will take as many of you with me as I can. Every step you take onto this ship will cost you bodies. Every corridor will be a graveyard. Your warriors will tell stories about this day for generations. They will call it the day they won against one tired human female who was not even a soldier." On the bone collector, the captain listened with his stone face twisted in rage. But something else was there too, hidden beneath the anger. Something that might have been doubt. Continued. "But that is not the part you should worry about. The part you should worry about is what happens after." She let her voice grow colder, harder. This was not the voice of a frightened engineer. This was the voice of something ancient and terrible. "When my people find out what you did, they will come for you. Not your ship, your species. Your children." The crew of the gentle drift stared at her with wide eyes. They had never heard a voice like this. It was the voice of a predator who had learned to use words instead of claws. "That is what humans do to those who hurt us. We do not forget. We do not forgive. We do not stop. My people once fought wars that lasted generations over insults. We burned cities over broken promises. We hunted our enemies across oceans and mountains and centuries." She leaned closer to the communication panel, her blood-covered face reflected in the screen. "So you can attack this ship. You can probably kill me. But ask yourself, is it worth it? Is one small cargo ship worth waking the anger of Earth? Is your pride worth the extinction of your species?" The bridge was completely silent. No one moved. No one breathed. "Or," said, her voice softening just slightly, "you can leave. Right now, turn your ship around and fly away. Pretend this never happened, forget you ever saw us. And we will do the same. No revenge, no hunting, no war, just nothing." She straightened up, swaying on her tired legs. "The choice is yours. You have 1 minute." Watched his sensors with shaking hands. The seconds passed like hours. The bone collector hung in space, its weapons still pointed at the gentle drift. 30 seconds. 40 seconds. 50 seconds. Then slowly the pirate ship began to move. Its claws released the gentle drift. Its engines powered up. Its nose turned away from them. The bone collector jumped to hyperspace and vanished into the stars. Fell against the wall. Her legs finally gave out. She slid to the floor, laughing weakly. "I cannot believe that worked," she whispered. I am an engineer. I was bluffing. I was completely bluffing. Stared at her with an expression of pure disbelief. You made them believe you could destroy their entire species. Humans are really good at threatening violence. We have had a lot of practice. The crew did not know whether to laugh or cry. They chose both. The bridge filled with strange sounds, voices releasing days of fear and grief and tension. Captain walked over to and knelt beside her on the floor. You saved us, she said. Again. Half your crew is dead. Yes, and died in the cold. And died when the pirates first broke through the airlock. We could not save them, but 6 of us are still alive, because of you. Looked at the captain with tired eyes. I did not want any of this. I just wanted to fix machines and go home. I know, and I am sorry for how we treated you. We were afraid we could not help it. Stepped forward. Her face was different now. The fear was still there, hiding in her eyes, but something else was stronger. Respect, maybe even admiration. I wanted to throw you out of the airlock on the first day, admitted. I thought you were a monster. I was wrong. You are not a monster. You are just different. Terrifying, yes, but not evil. Managed a small smile. Thank you, I think. The gentle drift limped toward the nearest space station. Its engines were damaged, its crew was wounded, but it was alive. Against all odds, it was alive. At the station, prepared to leave. She would find a way back to human space. She would search for her ship, her crew, her friends. She would try to return to her normal life, fixing engines and solving problems. But she knew, deep down, that nothing would ever be normal again. She had seen what she was capable of. She had felt the predator inside her wake up and take control. She had learned something about herself that she could never forget. Captain stood at the airlock as walked toward the station. Will you be all right? She asked. I do not know, but I will try. If you ever need a place to stay, the gentle drift will always welcome you. Paused. She thought about the fear she had seen in their eyes. She thought about the nights spent alone in the cargo hold, treated like a dangerous animal. She thought about trying to kill her with sedatives. But she also thought about defending her from the beginning. She thought about treating her wounds with gentle hands. She thought about admitting she was wrong. Thank you, said. That means more than you know. She walked onto the station and disappeared into the crowd. Just another figure in the endless movement of galactic civilization. No one looked at her twice. No one knew what she had done. Behind her, the crew of the gentle drift watched her go. They would tell stories about her for the rest of their lives. Stories about the human who walked through deadly cold like it was nothing. Stories about the engineer who killed 8 pirates with her bare hands. Stories about the who bluffed an army into running away. They had learned something important, something the galaxy was only beginning to understand. There is no such thing as an average human. Every single one of them is a survivor of a death world. Every single one of them carries the strength and violence of billions of years of evolution. Every single one of them is more dangerous than they appear. And heaven help anyone who makes them angry.